Hey guys, hope you're all doing great today. Coinbase just went public via direct listing in one of the biggest public offerings of all time. For me, this is one of the most intriguing investments I've ever seen, and I think most people don't fundamentally understand the company, which creates a potentially massive opportunity. There is a ton of debate and controversy around this stock right now. Some people think it's ridiculously overvalued, and some people think it's actually super undervalued. Like I said, I don't think most people understand this company on a deep enough level in order to perform an accurate valuation on it, so I'm going to attempt to provide you with that today. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit that like button. If you are at all interested in Coinbase stock, I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this video. If you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Anyways, let's get into the video. So Coinbase was initially priced at $250, giving it a valuation of around $65 billion, but in reality it never got even close to that price. Initially it started to shoot up over 400, reaching a valuation of over 110 billion at the peak, before crashing as low as 310, which would be a market cap of around $80 billion. Full disclosure, I actually initiated a small position right at the open around 380. I generally don't buy IPOs. In fact, this was the first time I've ever bought a company on the day it went public. But I see massive long-term potential in this stock, and I'm not at all concerned with the short-term volatility. Now let's get into the numbers to see why this stock is so controversial. The first thing you need to understand about Coinbase is how they make their money. The vast majority of their revenue is derived from transaction fees. That means that when cryptos are more volatile, they make more money, and especially when cryptos are skyrocketing, they make an ungodly amount of money. This is because transaction volumes explode during periods of volatility and massive bull runs. If we take a look at the last time their revenue exploded in 2017, half of that increase came from just 1 month, December, when Bitcoin more than doubled and reached a new all-time high. Then revenue declined as Bitcoin went into a bear market, until 2020 when the current bull market started. Then in Q1 of 2021, revenue absolutely exploded to $1.8 billion, which is 57% more than they did in the entirety of 2020. This is mostly due to Bitcoin's meteoric rise over that period, but I also think a large part of this growth is from institutional investors moving into Bitcoin through Coinbase. Now, if we were to take this quarter's revenue numbers and assume they maintain that throughout 2021, that would put their annual revenue at $7.2 billion. At a market cap of around $85 billion, that puts them at a laughably low forward price to sales of 11.8. Not only that, but the company is insanely profitable. They're expecting net income of between $730 and $800 million and adjusted EBITDA of around $1.1 billion, which would put them at a 61% adjusted EBITDA margin. If they maintain this level of profitability, their forward price to EBITDA would be approximately 19.3x. By these metrics, and assuming they can keep growing, Coinbase appears to be incredibly undervalued. So why do some people think that the company should only be worth $19 billion? To understand this disconnect, let's take a look at the bear case against the stock. Simply put, those who believe that Coinbase is overvalued have the opinion basically that their best days are right now, and going forward they will not only fail to grow but actually start to decline. Coinbase's revenue exploded massively this quarter, so it's understandable that many think that this isn't sustainable. But I think many analysts are underestimating the growth that Coinbase could continue to see going forward. To summarize, the main bearish points Forbes provides here are that Coinbase is overvalued compared to traditional stock brokerages, transaction fees will fall due to competition, they are spending more on marketing to maintain market share, and cryptos are not mainstream. The first point here I think is quite weak. Coinbase simply isn't comparable to traditional stock brokerages, which operate in a mature market and are hardly growing compared to Coinbase. Coinbase's current growth rates are astronomical, and if they can maintain even just a fraction of that growth going forward, then they deserve to be valued at a much, much higher multiple than companies like Charles Schwab. This kind of reminds me of how many analysts tried to compare Tesla to ICE vehicle manufacturers, and we all know how that worked out. The second point is a much stronger argument, and I actually do think it is inevitable that transaction fees will continue to decrease over time. However, when you examine the details, it doesn't really hold up to scrutiny. They mention rival crypto exchanges could drive down transaction fees, but what they fail to realize is that most of these platforms already have fees much lower than Coinbase, and many have been around for much longer as well. In fact, I think Coinbase probably has some of the highest fees in the industry, especially if you are a low-volume retail investor. And yet, despite these factors, Coinbase has not only survived in this environment, but they are in fact crushing their competition, and it's not even close. If we take a look at assets under management, which is the total amount of crypto assets each exchange has on their platform, we can see Coinbase absolutely dwarfs Binance, which is the largest exchange by far when measured by transaction volume. As of March 31st, Coinbase had $233 billion in crypto assets on their platform, representing an enormous 11.3% share of the entire crypto market. While Binance does around 10 times more volume than Coinbase, in terms of assets on the platform, they are way behind. This shows that while people trade a lot more on Binance, they hold a lot more crypto on Coinbase. So why is this the case? Well, Coinbase has several advantages going for it. First, in terms of safety and security, Coinbase is simply the most trusted crypto name in traditional investing circles. Unlike most exchanges, they have never been hacked, and they keep 98% of assets in offline cold storage. They have an extremely simple, minimalistic interface that appeals to average investors rather than hardcore crypto traders, but their biggest advantage is when it comes to institutional investors. 50% of their volume and 55% of the assets on their platform come from institutions. We don't have comparable numbers from other exchanges, but I'd confidently bet that no rival exchange comes anywhere remotely close to the $122 billion in institutional crypto assets that Coinbase held as of March 31st. Institutions moving into Bitcoin has been one of the biggest drivers of the current bull market, and these types of clients require platforms that have huge scale, are safe, stable, and regulated. Ask yourself, if Binance's fees are so much lower, then why are the biggest investors choosing to put their money on Coinbase? The answer is first that fees are lower for larger institutional customers on Coinbase, and second, Coinbase provides other advantages that are more appealing to bigger customers. And now with Coinbase being a publicly traded company, that adds just another layer of transparency and trust in the platform, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a surge in institutional investors over the next few quarters. Another point that everyone seems to be missing is the fact that Coinbase is probably going to expand into new categories over time. Most of the analysis I've seen on this company simply assumes that they're going to continue to make all of their money from transaction fees. But I think they will eventually start to get into other products like debit and credit cards, or even loans and crypto savings accounts. There are tons of different verticals Coinbase could look to increase revenue growth, even if transaction fees are driven down over time. The third point here is, again, a pretty silly argument in my opinion. They say Coinbase is tripling its marketing spend from 2020, but what they don't mention is that their revenue has well over tripled as well. They're planning to spend 12 to 15% of net sales on sales and marketing, which is a pretty insignificant sum compared to many other companies. Not only that, but the company is already highly profitable. This isn't a situation where a company is bleeding money spending more to acquire sales than they are actually making. In my opinion, this is 100% the right move from Coinbase, and they should be taking advantage of the current excitement around cryptos to grow their user base as much as possible. The final bear point here is perhaps the most ridiculous, out-of-touch argument of them all. They are basically saying that because cryptos are not yet widely adopted, therefore Coinbase is overvalued. The problem is you could have made the exact same argument in 2017, and yet Coinbase is up 50x since then, and their revenues have continued to grow at an astounding rate as well. In my opinion, cryptocurrency markets are still really in their infancy, and there is a tremendous amount of growth ahead, especially as more and more institutions get involved. Eventually, I think that even world governments will hold reserves of cryptocurrency, and these markets will be worth many trillions of dollars. If anything, the fact that cryptocurrency isn't yet fully mainstream should be a bullish factor for Coinbase, as it means their total addressable market is still huge, and the market is nowhere near maturity. So now that we better understand the bear case against Coinbase, let's attempt to actually come up with a reasonable valuation for the stock. If we go back to their revenue numbers, I want to point out a few important facts. First, the vast majority of their revenue comes in short periods of extreme price growth in cryptos. 50% of their 2017 revenue occurred just in December, and this past quarter they had another huge jump in revenue as Bitcoin rallied. What's important to notice though is that even though revenues declined in the following bear market, they still managed to keep a large portion of those revenues and continue to grow their user base. In 2016, the company only did $16 million, and then in the bear market in 2018 and 2019, they were still doing around $500 million annually. So even if the revenues have been volatile, the long-term trend is significant growth. If Bitcoin crashed, it would undoubtedly cut into their revenues massively, but if you believe that Bitcoin is going to continue to rise long-term, then the short-term crashes really don't matter. I personally believe the current crypto bull market has more room to run, and I think that long-term, Bitcoin alone will be worth trillions of dollars. Current analyst estimates are, in my opinion, way too low. The problem is that revenues in this business are extremely difficult to predict because they are largely tied to crypto price movement. Analysts expect Coinbase to do about $4.8 billion in 2021, which would be a significant decline from the $1.8 billion in the first quarter. Even using these conservative estimates, that would put their forward price to sales at less than 18, which I think is way too low given the growth I see in the coming years. I think that a more accurate mid-range estimate would be approximately $6 billion, which would represent revenues of around $1.4 billion quarterly over the next 3 quarters. This would put their forward price to sales at around 14. I am basing my estimates mainly on the mid-range guidance given by management, which assumes flat crypto prices and low to moderate volatility. However, I think it is actually more likely that we will continue to see further appreciation and volatility in crypto assets over the course of the year, which would lead to higher revenues. In this scenario, I think revenues for 2021 could be as high as $7 to $8 billion. Lastly, in a bear market scenario, I think they could still manage to do revenues in the $3 to $4 billion range. Management's low-end guidance assumes a similar situation to the 2018 bear market, and even in that type of dire market environment, they still expect average monthly transacting users to be around 4 million, which would still be an extremely impressive 42% increase from 2020. The bottom line of this analysis is that if Bitcoin and cryptocurrency adoption continues to grow, especially if it continues to grow at the rapid pace we've seen in 2020 and 2021, then Coinbase will continue to put up tremendous growth numbers as well. In my opinion, the biggest threat to Coinbase over the next few years is not competition, but actually a crypto crash and extended bear market. And even that should be nothing more than a short-term hurdle. Right now, it is very difficult to come up with accurate estimates of what type of numbers Coinbase is likely to do, and that makes it equally difficult to value the company. However, this opens up an opportunity for investors who can see the value proposition here and are willing to take on a bit of risk and make a contrarian investment. I think it is safe to say that analysts as a whole are too bearish on this company, and it simply isn't understood well enough yet. Long term, I believe the opportunity in front of Coinbase is massive, and I could see the shares going as high as $700 to $1,000 over the next few years if we continue to see good performance in cryptos. And even in a crypto crash scenario, I think Coinbase will be able to keep a large portion of the gains they've made in the last few years and probably maintain profitability as well, as they operate at a much larger scale now. In terms of price points, I think anything under $400 is probably an excellent value long term. If this stock continues to downtrend and dips below $300, I will start adding more to my position. And if it gets anywhere near $250, it's time to load the boat. Let me know what you guys think of Coinbase in the comments below. Are any of you invested in this stock? Don't forget to like the video if you get some value out of it today, and subscribe for more content in the future. Thank you all for watching. I will catch you in the next video.